Hi everyone, you're very welcome back. So my video today is going to be on how I like to do my own skin routine when it comes to makeup. So it will be prepping the skin before foundation and then how I like to set the makeup and finish it through warmth and by adding highlighters, bronzers and blushers. So the products that I'm going to be using today are all from the Note Cosmetics range. So you've probably heard me talk loads about Note Cosmetics in the past couple of months, and I'm just obsessed with the range completely. So I always get asked lots of questions anytime I ever do a tutorial, and I'm always trying out new things. So I have a couple of new products that I've never put onto my other social media before, so you guys are going to be the first to see and hear me using it. So, okay, so first thing that is so important when you're doing your foundation is you need to make sure that the base is right. So depending on what skin type you are, so if you are normal to dry, you more than likely will be looking for something illuminating or radiating or something that's going to create a bit of a dewy kind of fresh look. On the opposite side, if you're more oily combination, you may possibly be looking for a more matte skin finish. So you'd be looking for, primers and moisturisers that would say mattifying, pore minimizing. So as long as you have the base right, your foundation is more likely to sit much better and wear a lot better throughout the day. So for today, because my skin is normal to dehydrated, I'm actually going to start by actually putting on the Sunglow foundation from No Cosmetics. So it has the most lovely luminosity to it. So I'm just going to pop it on the back of my hand. And it's got like a really kind of golden iridescent glow off it. So it's really gorgeous for, especially coming into the summer months. This is particularly lovely for holidays and sunny days. So just going to I'm using an F20 brush from Blank Canvas Cosmetics. This is a buffer style brush, and this is my holy grail foundation brush that I love to use when I'm doing the skin. So I'm just going to put that all over the skin. Don't be alarmed by the colour of it. This is actually a foundation, so it can be worn on its own without putting another foundation on top. So it kind of has a lovely bronzed golden glow off it. I'm going to put that all over the skin. So just round and around. Focusing definitely more on like the centre parts of the face. Don't worry too much kind of around hairlines and things like that. So as I said, if you are quite sallow or if you wear fake tan every day, you could wear this product on its own if you didn't want like a heavy foundation look and you just literally wanted to put a bit of colour back into your skin. So I'm just making sure that that's blended. So it just gives such a nice glow off the skin. And this is going to be so perfect for underneath the foundation that I'm going to be using next. Okay, so now that I know that that's well blended, you just kind of swish that all around the face, making sure that it's not patchy. So that's it on its own. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to put my foundation on top of it. So when you're using primers or anything like that, you can put your foundation directly on top of it. When you're using moisturisers, leave the moisturiser for 5 minutes and then put your foundation on top. So maybe move on to eyebrows or the eye makeup or something. So the foundation of my choice that I personally adore and I'm going to be using is the Luminous Moisturising Foundation. So this foundation is particularly good for people that again have normal, dehydrated, dry skin. It's quite full coverage and it's buildable, but like I rarely ever have to build it. It is quite kind of, it's not overly luminous as such, like you don't get a shiny finish, but it does feel very moisturised on the skin. So I personally find this one brilliant for people that are in the normal to dry dehydrated bracket. So the shade that I'm actually using on myself today is the shade 05 and that's Honey Beige. So the reason why I'm using 05 is because I'm actually wearing some fake tan. So that's my shade when I'm wearing tan. It's kind of got like a lovely golden yellow tone to it. So it's perfect for when you're wearing any sort of fake tans that are medium to dark toned. So I'm using my F20 brush, same brush that I used to apply the primer. And this time what I'm doing is I'm actually going to be starting in the middle of the face. So working in the middle of the face, down around the mouth, And I'm using like a buffing motion with my brush. So I'm basically just patting the brush off the skin rather than doing the swishing motion that I was doing earlier. And by doing the patting motion, basically you're getting a much fuller coverage from your foundation as opposed to if you were doing the swishing. So when you're actually pressing it and pushing it into the skin, you're giving yourself the fullest coverage that your skin needs. So I always start in the middle of the face and then I work my way out towards the hairlines because we need most of our coverage in the middle of the face as opposed to in the outer rim of the face. Never forget to bring your foundation slightly down your jawline just to blend it into your skin, into your tan, making sure that your whole upper body matches in colour. So when I'm putting foundation on as well, you might notice that I'm completely avoiding this eye area. So I never put foundation on in the eye area or around the eye area because for me personally, I find it's too drying and too dehydrating for that little thin piece of skin around the eyes. And I find that foundations can crease and they can set kind of not very nice under the eyes. So I only ever put concealer on under the eyes. So I'm just patting and buffing that foundation in. This is probably the most important part of applying the foundation, and that's the buffing motion. So you're just going around and around. It's quite tedious, but you're just going around the face and you're just pressing it into the skin. It's particularly good, this motion, for people that would suffer with acne, would have dry flaky patches on their skin and need the coverage. If you do a patting motion on top of the areas that need more coverage, you'll see better results than if you were to move the brush off the skin. So again, just buffing around. So when I'm happy with the level of coverage, I normally say 1 to 2 layers of your foundation is enough. And if you're still looking for coverage and you're going back in again with 3 to 4 layers of foundation, your foundation is probably never going to cover what it is that you're looking to hide. So in that case, it could be blemishes, it could be redness on the skin. So I always say if it's not covering it after 1 to 2 layers, you need a concealer then. So concealer is going to be the only thing that's actually going to cover it for you. So now that I'm on the topic of concealer, I am quite lucky at the moment. I haven't got any breakouts, so I'm sorry I can't show you any blemishes and how to cover them at the moment. But what I do have is I have very dark circles underneath my eyes. So the dark circles under my eyes are the bane of my life, and I will do another video on colour correcting and all of that for again. But for now, I'm literally just going to apply concealer under the eyes, just making sure that it blends in. So the concealer that I'm actually using is the BB Concealer Advanced Skin Corrector. Again, another full coverage concealer, which is amazing for the under eye area. It doesn't crease, it doesn't set into any lines. It literally lasts all day. Like, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And because it actually is a beauty balm style of concealer, it keeps the under eye area really hydrated as well. So you're not going to look more aged kind of with the concealer applied. So the brush that I'm going to use for applying the concealer is an F40 brush from Blank Canvas Cosmetics. So the reason why I like this brush in particular is because it's got like a nice pointy tip head on it. It allows me to get like right into the areas under the eye without poking my eye basically. So I'm using the shade 03 in the BB concealer. It's a little bit darker than my day-to-day shade, which I use 01, but that's because I'm wearing fake tan. So I normally would say to people, go 1 to 2 shades lighter with your concealer. I never would go any less than 2 shades lighter, because otherwise you're going to find it really, really hard to blend the concealer into the foundation. So again, like the foundation brush, I'm just patting that concealer on under the eye area, and I'm just covering the lid, any discoloration that's there. So I'm kind of just using the length of the brush and using the side of it just to pat along under the eyes, and just kind of bringing it out to the temple. So you'd often see, you know, a lot of makeup artists and YouTubers draw like a triangle underneath their eyes. This tapered style brush, the F40, because of the shape of it, actually almost does that for you without you having to be drawing anything on your skin. So that's one eye done, and that's the other one not done. So and you can see automatically how much brighter under the eye looks. If I was to go in with the foundation under my eye, my skin would look just kind of flat and all one colour. So I'm just again patting. Always remember, it's always that patting motion. If I was just sweeping and moving my brush back and forward, all I'm actually doing is just moving the product around the face. So we're just patting that on. Okay. So now that I have my concealer under my eyes, I have my skin as flawless as I can get it, or as I like it. Now what I need to do is I'm going to set all my liquids in place. This is completely optional. Some people that would have very dry skin, more mature skin, hate the thoughts of putting powder onto their skin. I personally like to set under my eyes and my T-zone area because I find that's the first place that my makeup usually starts to wear off throughout the day. So by putting a setting powder on, I'm actually creating a barrier on top of the makeup, sealing it in place. So that's my reason for using powder. If you're oily skinned, most people that have oily skin know that they need to use a powder because it's controlling the oils and just mattifying everything down. The powder that I'm using would be particularly good for people that would have normal to dry skin. It's the Luminous Silk Compact Powder. So because it's a silk based powder, it doesn't contain talc, so it's not going to strip the skin and that's not going to dry it out. So I'm actually using the shade 01 Beige, which is quite fair. It's actually my daytime shade as well. But actually, because I want to make the centre of my face a little bit brighter and my concealer is a little bit lighter as well, I don't mind using a powder that's a little bit lighter in colour. So you can actually get your powder to match your foundation either, whichever is your own preference. So the brush then that I'm using is the F15 brush from Blank Canvas Cosmetics, probably one of my favourite powder brushes ever. And all I'm doing is, again, with my patting motion, just underneath my eyes, I'm just setting the concealer, just patting that powder underneath, using the flat of the brush, just to pat. And just pressing that down under the eyes. Just really lightly, like I'm not putting an awful lot of powder onto the skin. And then between my eyebrows, just kind of in the centre of the forehead, I'm just patting some on there. Down the bridge of the nose and the sides. And then around the mouth. Because that's where I find my makeup wears off most throughout the day. So that's why I set it with powder. So then moving on from there, because I know I'm not going to be using any more cream-based products, I'm only going to be using powders. That's the reason why I set with powder as well. If you were going to be going in with some creamy-based blushers and bronzers, you would probably leave the powder until the very last because you always powder after you use liquid rather than vice versa. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to warm up my skin and I'm just going to use the Note Cosmetics bronzer. So I absolutely adore the packaging on this bronzer, and this is the shade 10. So this is the lightest shade from the range. They have 3 different shades in their bronzer, so depending on your skin tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring that bronzer into the cheekbones. It's just really lightly, using my F15 brush again, same brush I used for my setting powder, and I'm just bringing that in through the hollows of my cheeks. And what this is going to do is, as you can see, it's just adding warmth to the outer part of my skin. So it just takes away that kind of flat, one shade look on your face. And now I'm just bringing that around the hairline. So really, really lightly. I don't want it to be obvious where the bronzer and the foundation meet. So that's why I'm using my brush really lightly and just bringing that around the hairline. And again, just focusing in on the cheekbones. So then another option that you can have is you can apply your blusher. So blusher again is completely optional. Some people like it, some people don't. I personally love it. I'm using my F15 brush again and I'm using the shade Pink in Summer. So it's absolutely gorgeous. And then just popping that onto the cheeks. So when you smile, it's the apple, it's the roundest part of the cheek that you're applying the blush to. And I'm just literally kind of flicking my brush back and forth off the apple of the cheek. So if you just smile, you'll get it in the right position. It's just popping that on. And then just to add extra glow, just going to pop some highlighter onto the tops of the cheekbones. And anybody can wear highlighter, no matter if you're oily, if you're dry. The only people I wouldn't recommend to put highlighter kind of onto this area would be if you are quite lined around this area, or if you are prone to blemishes or acne and you don't want to draw attention to anything. That would be the only reason you wouldn't put highlighter. So just popping that all over, and then I'm just kind of curving it around the brow, just so that it's not a floating line in the middle of the face. And then just really lightly dusting it on the centre of the nose and on the bridge, and just on the top of the cupid's bow. Anybody that is oily, in particular with an oily T-zone, I would avoid putting any highlighter into the middle of the face, because people with oily skin tend to not need any additional glow because their skin gets shiny as the day goes on, so you don't want to enhance that. So that is my finished look. And all I did was use 3 brushes and very minimal amount of products, and yeah, it's very, very easy to achieve. And I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope you'll tune in and you'll share the video and subscribe. So thanks a million, ladies, and I'll see you next time.